Angelo, I'm going to ask this one to you. Is there any science behind intermittent fasting?
The answer is yes. There's absolutely science behind it. I've seen every single diet work. There's science, but there's always consequence as well. When your coach picks a strategy, they're always looking at the big picture, not just the battle, but also the war. Weight loss is always going to be this hostile negotiation between you and your metabolism. I'm going to lose 10 pounds, you say. The metabolism goes, fine, I'm going to slow down. And that's the give and take. Some strategies are more potent than others, and some strategies will also elicit a more potent response from your metabolic rate. Fasting is pretty much the most potent. Your metabolism is going to take it as the ultimate assault on it and try to compensate by slowing down. So the question is not, is there science behind it? Absolutely, there's science. It's how should it be applied? And its application can really range. There's people who don't eat certain days of the week and they eat others. Well, that's not worth talking about because that represents such a minuscule population of people that can even tolerate that. A much more common implementation is simply, I don't eat carbs after 3:30. I hear that all the time. That's a real common strategy. Well, that's actually a form of cyclical fasting. What you're doing is you're purposefully time gating your carbohydrates to impact how your body replenishes its glycogen stores. And things like that can have a lot of benefit. The thing to remember is that when most people will argue for cyclical fasting or intermittent fasting, they're usually doing so not necessarily based on a in-depth understanding of how the science actually works. A lot of the proponents will say, well, it's because when you only eat between certain hours, the hormonal scenario that takes place puts your body in line for greater fat burning. And that's not a false statement. The truism, however, is that the amount of weight you lose is most directly proportionate to the, whether intentional or accidental, restriction in calories. Like, no, I'm losing the weight because I'm eating the calories between these hours. That's not necessarily true. Take gastric bypass surgeries. Very successful. Nearly everybody who has a gastric bypass surgery loses weight. Their stomach shrinks. Ask any friend or anyone you know that's had the surgery, how do they eat? Oh, I only eat between these 3 hours. No, they just eat a few bites all day long. It's that if you eat 600 calories a day, you lose weight. And I don't care whether you get 600 in one meal or you get it spread out throughout the day. You can make an argument that you might lose a tiny bit more total pounds lost by gating it within a certain group of hours, where you lose a little bit more fat doing it that way, but you're also setting your body up to be in a catabolic state, therefore also losing a little more muscle along with it versus had you spread the calories out throughout the day. And none of those reasons are why you will not hear us often promoting it. And I say often because there are exceptions, and there are times I have had a client implement a measure of intermittent fasting. But the reason you won't hear it often is because it tends to be mutually exclusive. It doesn't play well with other strategies. If you're doing intermittent fasting, that's the strategy, and you can't pair it well with a bunch of other tools and techniques. It's kind of like in CrossFit, we do a lot of front squats. Well, is a front squat better than back squat? Not necessarily. If that a front squat translates into an Oli list, an overhead press, clean, all the other things, it translates well. When you participate in intermittent fasting, there's nothing else to do other than add those meals back in. And so what that means, and now this, of course, is just a random scenario, but it's a common one that I see. Person A participates in intermittent fasting, and I say, great, I think you're going to do well with it. Person B says, I don't think it's going to work out so well for you. Why? Because person A, I think, is going to lose 20 pounds intermittent fasting. And then when they stop, they're going to gain 5 back. Person B is going to lose some indeterminate amount of weight. And when they stop, they're going to gain 5 pounds back. With person B, I don't think that they're going to outpace the amount of weight they gain back. And why? Because spreading calories back out over just 2 or 3 meals is a lot harder to do without gaining weight. So we end up adding more meals, and most people invariably gain weight back. So the question is, if we implement this, we know there's going to be some rebound weight gain. So there has to be a really good reason to implement it. I would much rather implement a strategy where I know we're going to manipulate your calories, your carbohydrates, and you're going to only lose 3 or 4 pounds. But at the end of that, I'm going to be able to rev your metabolic rate back up, get you used to eating more with minimal or no weight gain, and then repeat that process over and over again. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't times for an intermittent fasting approach. The times that an intermittent fasting approach are applicable is when it's helping to manage a habit that we're better suited by time gating. But again, there's lots of ways to implement. So I know we're running out of time, but last 60 seconds, I'll give an example. I had a client who got up really early in the mornings, and then he would do his workout about 5:30 in the morning. He would eat breakfast before his workout, then he would do his workout, and then he would eat all day long, and he was ravenous. By 11:30, he had to be on his 4th meal because he had such an appetite. That's unique to him, and that's the way it was. So by the end of the day, even though he was eating clean, he was eating a large amount of calories spread out throughout the day. So for this client, I said, we're going to change things up. I want you to sleep in an extra half hour in the morning. And what we're going to do is we're going to move your workouts to the afternoon right after lunch. And so you're not going to have breakfast until 9:30 or 10. That represented swinging his breakfast by 4 or 5 hours. So he had his breakfast at about 9:30, 10. Then he had his snack, his lunch. He worked out, and he was good. He could have snack, dinner, and the net result was we were able to get him to lose weight. That's a scenario where it actually worked in our advantage. So it's never a matter of good or bad. It's a matter of understanding the science behind the trigger. What's triggering the weight loss? And is that something that is a logical next step for you? So to in brief answer the question, there's absolutely science behind intermittent fasting. And I will direct my clients to use a different science if at all possible for the reasons that we just stated.